Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern14.com here to preview games of Tuesday night in the SEC. But first, due to time constraints, we didn't talk about two games from the weekend. We thought we'd include these quickly in this video. Blake, Mississippi State and Missouri played a doubleheader on each other's home courts, and State wins both of those, which, State's NCAA chances right now pretty much dead anyway, but if they're going to be revived, State had to win both those, which it did.
Yeah, as you said, we were going to do these in the other video, but we hit about the hour mark, and we're thinking, all right, we should just hold these off until now. But yeah, I mean, quickly, this was kind of what you expected. A dominant home win for Mississippi State, a narrow road win, right? But Mississippi State now has a road win on their resume.
Yeah.
So, there you go. It was not pretty, and quite frankly, how many times have we said this? Missouri probably should have won this game.
Oh, man.
You talk about a frustration point.
Florida game was that way.
Should have beat Auburn. Should have beat Florida. So this was another one that I think you should have won. You're up 30. I think you're not up 30. You're up with 30-something seconds left, I want to say. And then I think that's when Mississippi State hit the two buckets with, in a span of 25 seconds or something to win it. So another disappointing loss, I think, for Missouri. But yeah, this went exactly how you would have thought it would. Mississippi State was really good at home, struggled on the road, but finally find a way to win one on the road. It's not going to do anything for them, really, but at least they have one on the road, and we can't keep going back to that same trope anymore. Mississippi State still hasn't beaten a team in a true road game. So 2 wins you had to have, but 2 wins that don't really do much for you.
Yeah, the net is 46. So if State can get some wins together, that metric is going to be right there. The other metrics are awful. 1-7 on the road, 2-8 in quad 1, 3 losses outside of quad 1. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. You're not
it's because of who they play, right? Like because they play South Carolina, Vanderbilt, and A&M as 3 of their Final 4. Even if they beat Auburn and lose to the other one of those others,
still probably
cancels
not
each
going.
other.
Yeah.
No, so you've got to win out, I think, to feel okay going into the SEC tournament.
What a weird metric, the net. I don't get that at all.
Well. Everyone's starting to come around to my thoughts on the net because it is a very strange metric.
Houston, at number 3 this morning in the net? I think something like that.
I don't know. Take your pick.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me started. Okay, on to picks. Speaking of Missouri, the Tigers hosting Tennessee, Vols 11-point favorites according to Ken Pom. Missouri's played well at home, had the frustrating losses time after time. Tennessee just playing well everywhere right now. Although, did get beat at Arkansas, wasn't a pretty game, but the Vols weren't bad. Look, you're going to lose a couple games on the road.
Let's think about this, though, okay? For anyone who strongly feels that Tennessee is going to come out and just blow the doors off of Missouri here, let's please think about something. Utah, Missouri wins that game at home. We've gone through this before, but I want to keep going through this whole list now to point out what I'm about to say. They beat Alabama at home, lose to A&M by 3 at home, lose to Auburn by 1 at home, lose to Florida by 1 at home, beat Ole Miss at home, lose to Arkansas by 19 at home. There's your 1. Lose to Mississippi State by 2 at home. I mean, at this point, we should expect this game to be a 2-point game because Missouri has just done this time and time again.
They grind you, and Tennessee's offense can get stagnant at times. Yes. It came back over the weekend at Arkansas.
I think Tennessee wins, but if Ken Pom has this as an 11-point game,
that's a lot.
There is no shot that I am taking that 11. Now, this is probably where Tennessee comes out and win by 30, right? But I am not touching that at all. Like, I want no part of that because Missouri has just done it so many times now to where I think we just have to lean on that to say that they may not win, and they haven't won many of them, but they at least find a way to keep it close. And so I think this is the kind of style, too, that Missouri would probably want against this kind of Tennessee team. And as we said, Tennessee has played as well as anybody over the past month or so going into last Saturday's game. They didn't play well there, but I think that was expected just based on the opponent. I don't know that they're just quickly going to be able to flip that switch and just all of a sudden come out and score 85 here against a Missouri team that has really, you said it, grinded teams to play a defensive type of
Yep.
ugly sort of game at times. So I'll pick Tennessee to win. I can't say I'm 100% confident about that, but I do think they bounce back here. And, matchup wise, this feels like a game that Tennessee actually has a pretty good matchup because of their defense, too. We've talked about Missouri's offense. But I think some of that can be misleading because I think a lot of Missouri's just horrendous offense came earlier in the season. And they've at least gotten better in some areas there, I think. They're still not scoring enough. I mean, really, let's be honest. They've hit the 60-point mark. Haven't hit the 60-point mark since the Ole Miss game. But I think this game will play to the strengths of Missouri in terms of that's kind of how Tennessee wants to win. They don't necessarily want to have to go out and win a 90-80 game, and I don't think there's any chance this game gets the 90-80. But I still tend to think that this will be close just based on the two teams. But maybe you have an Arkansas example. I don't think so. I think
Well, Arkansas is just one of those where it's just for whatever reason that's a matchup that transcends the scores every time. You just get a team you don't match up well with, and for some reason Arkansas is theirs.
Yeah, we said that because it's 44 points the first time, and so I think that's where I'm at on this one. I think it's going to be closer than the numbers may suggest. Just because of Missouri, they have been. Even if you tend to doubt them, which I understand why you would at this point, they have played so many close games at home. But maybe Arkansas, that was kind of a bounce back game for them when they lost to Alabama to go to Missouri. But I think that was more about maybe the matchup. So stylistically, I think Missouri probably prefers a Tennessee than an Arkansas. So yeah, I'll take Tennessee to win, but I think it's actually much closer than. If that number is double digits, I don't think I could look at Tennessee and feel good about that. So
that game will be at 6 Central. Again, that's in Columbia. Also at 6 Central, A&M is hosting Georgia. The Aggies 13-point favorites, according to Ken Palm. We've talked about how Georgia has been sneakily competitive, but I wonder if the dam burst on their home floor. You got assistants fighting. You got Crean saying stuff about his point guard that he didn't know it was on mic that couldn't have gone over well. You got a team that got blown out on its home floor against an Ole Miss team that was missing its 3 best players and its next 2 best players were sick. So that had the optics to me I'm not going to say Georgia's quit. That's not fair. I don't know. But you start to wonder when stuff like that happens. A&M, Aggies have lost, 9 of 10 or something like that. But most of these games have been close, and I know we think this is a team with some talent.
Yeah, I take A&M and everything here. I think that this is I told you the last video. I try to stay optimistic that Georgia's going to find another win somewhere, but that's looking tougher and tougher because of the schedule left. I know I kind of joked about maybe they beat Florida, but what do you expect, right? This is the SEC, and they did beat Alabama. But, I'm taking A&M, and it was close the first time around, but that was, the first game of the SEC season for both. It was a 2-point game. A&M won. 2 teams in different spots, and A&M's kind of gone in the other direction, so has Georgia, of course, but I think A&M wins this by double digits. I just don't have any confidence in Georgia for all the things you mentioned. Morale cannot be very high there right now, and you've got an A&M team that has played, as we said, they've been in a lot of games. So I'm going to pick A&M. That's no surprise. I think A&M will force a lot of turnovers in this one. We keep talking about that with A&M. That is one thing they do really well, is they can force turnovers, and I just think that I don't think this will be much of a game, to be honest with you. Maybe we're surprised by that. Maybe Georgia does come out. They have a significant size advantage here, but I don't think it matters. I think A&M does whatever they want, and score-wise, I don't really know what to expect in this game because these are 2 teams that are kind of hit or miss there, but I think turnovers will be the difference, and I think A&M wins this thing by double digits.
Game of biggest significance, I think, in the league on Tuesday. Arkansas goes to Florida. Tip-off also 7 Eastern. You'd think they could have staggered these a little bit, but they didn't. So we got 3 games in one time slot and 1 in the late. Anyway, Arkansas is about a 1-point favorite on Ken Pom going to Florida, which of course just upset Auburn on its floor. We had a long talk about Florida and a recap. Arkansas we've been bullish on for about a month and a half. We've talked about how good Jalen Williams has been, which that matchup with Ian Castleton will be interesting. Florida's got some quality guards. J.D. Note has just been wreaking havoc on the league most of conference season. Oh, boy. Is it too much recency to say Florida wins this game?
It's not.
But because I think if you take the whole body, you feel like Arkansas wins, right?
Yeah, and that's that's my go-to.
Yes.
And that's why I'm going to pick Arkansas here, because I'm still, and I know, like, it's just, I want to make sure that what I'm saying about Florida is not taken the wrong way here. It's because it's not, and this is probably not fair, but I do want to say this because how many times have we been in this situation before with Florida? They get a huge win, right? And you're thinking, all right, this team has turned the corner. But how many times in the past 5 years have we said that? And it's just like, and they don't. And they just kind of stay right there in that middle. That's what worries me a little bit. And I do think
that's a good point. Florida's like perpetually 5th to like 8th in this league.
And that's why their fans are frustrated. Because they used to be perpetually 1 or 2. And now they kind of fall in that middle range where you're like, if Florida doesn't get a 7-8 seed, you're surprised, right? It's like, you don't want that, though. Like, you want to, and I've said this, I think you throw out last year completely because that was just unusual circumstances. Your best player, Keontae Johnson situation, you can't judge Mike White, I think, on last year. That would not be fair. But I think you can't ignore the trends over a period of time, and that's where with them, I know they beat Auburn, but I also know that this was still a team up to beating Auburn that had not beaten an NCAA tournament team outside of Ohio State all year long, right? And so that is
that's 2 pretty good NCAA tournament teams that they've beaten now.
Yeah, but how many teams have they lost to? I mean, and how many teams?
Yeah, but sometimes the Gator pops up and gets you.
It's like, I get it, but that's the problem. If they win this game, then you're going to see me flip on Florida. You're going to see me say they're going to go into Georgia and win by 25. Yeah. They're going to go in and beat Vanderbilt. And you know what? They're going to finish the season beating Kentucky at home. That's where my confidence would get to. But I just think that I really like Arkansas and the way they've been playing.
Yeah.
And I think that in that scenario, you did bring up something, though, that makes me a little hesitant. If Colin Castleton plays like he did against Auburn, and let's say he cancels out what Jalen Williams can do.
But Williams doesn't get in foul trouble, and that's a thing that
I know
helps.
He's been really good at that, but I hope I didn't put the jinx on him because he has been really good at that. But Colin Castleton's a guy that can push you in the wrong direction sometimes.
Well, look, when you outplay Walker Kessler, which he did, that hasn't happened in a long time with anybody.
I've come around on Colin Castleton.
Yes.
I was not there last year, but I've come around on him now, and I mean he is like he's a huge difference maker. I think this one is as hard to figure out. I think this one is harder to figure out than Arkansas-Tennessee game on Saturday to me.
Yeah.
I think this is harder to figure out than I'm trying to think back to some of the games. This is one of the tougher ones to pick.
There's no outcome in this game that would shock me.
No, I don't think so either. I wouldn't be surprised if one of these two teams just got hot, let's say won by double digits. I'm not saying by 20 or something, but I wouldn't be shocked at that outcome. But I think for me, going back to the body of work thing, I think I'm still looking at two teams where one of them has proven it many more times against top competition, whereas the other one has proven it recently in terms of their most recent game. But I still think that I still have in the back of my mind that outside of Kentucky, even Auburn, I think you can point out some flaws over the past month. I don't think anyone in the SEC has played any better than Arkansas over the past month. And even that game they lost to Alabama, right? They lose by 1 point, two of their best players on the bench for basically an entire half. and they still are right there.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pick Arkansas, and I think if Florida wins this, like I said, I will change my tune on Florida, but I'm not totally there yet because this is still a team that's 17-10 and 7-7
She's
in the
still
league.
Two-Face.
And I just don't. I want to see this again. As you said, a Gator can pop up right every now and then, but
That's what I hear.
Can it stay up? Like can it for two
does it
games in a row?
Does it leave with both eyes?
Now I know where you're going with this. Now we're really starting to get there on Happy Gilmore.
I've been trolling you for a while.
Yeah, that's it's like it's Chubbs here, man. I mean, it's you got to
Sometimes
figure
Chubbs
out
falls out the window.
What are they going to do here? I'm going to pick Arkansas, but I feel like I'm trying to talk myself out of this, but I think Arkansas wins. No, but like my point is, I think you're trying to talk me into. I can't do it. Like, man, I can't do it. I'm picking Arkansas. So can't do it.
All right, another really good one, and this one could also go a lot of ways. Alabama going to Vandy, which Alabama didn't win in that gym for literally like 2 decades until it did a couple years back. Alabama -3 on Ken Palm going to Vandy, which just got a couple of really good wins at home recently, LSU and A&M. We've talked about how the Commodores have a snowball's chance maybe. Well, that's not it. A puncher's chance of getting the NCAA tournament. We're not really buying it, but it could happen. Alabama's not been great on the road. We've talked about Alabama's inconsistency issues. And Vandy's been pretty consistent the last 2 to 3 weeks. Ever since that debacle at South Carolina where they just gagged one away in the final 7 or 8 minutes, Vandy's been pretty tough. And there's fans in the gym again, students in the gym again. It's changed for Vanderbilt from where we were on them 4 to 6 weeks ago.
I'm thinking about this one, man. I'm almost tempted to do it here. But I still think Alabama. The thing with Vanderbilt is, right, we talked about the importance of Pippen, and we know Robbins has been he's going to need to be a big part of this game, and that's where you've got Bediako on the other side. But Vanderbilt, one of their strengths has been 3-point field goal defense. They've also forced some turnovers. We've talked about Alabama sometimes being a little lackluster with ball security, to say the least. Man, Alabama traditionally has not played well there. I think if you go back to, what about last year? Did they play there last year?
I will check.
I don't think they did. But I think the one I'm thinking of was, I'm trying to think. They won there the year previous. That was 1920.
Which was, I think that was the first one in a while, or was that the second one? I want to
say that was 2 in a row. I think at that point, because
they may have gotten them in. They may have gotten them Memorial in the 0 for 18, the Bryce Drew special.
Traditionally, though, they have struggled there. But I also feel like that
was kind of 2 programs ago too for both.
Yeah, it's a little different. And I'm going to pick Alabama. I think they make enough shots here. I feel like that. I don't know if that is a stat I'd love someone to find. I'd like to know 3-point percentage in Memorial Gym, home and visitor, for the past 10 years. I'd like to see what that trend looks like, because I think it's just the nature of the game too. And the SEC, we talked about, the SEC traditionally ranks 25th or lower in terms of 3-point percentage as a league. And I feel like that's changed a little bit to where it used to be. This year, you compare all the conference games only. I'm looking at Ken Palm here. 31.8%. That's 31st of 32 leagues. So
look, there are a lot of good things in this league this year. One place the league is short is shooters.
And Alabama's not nowhere near as good, so that hurts. Auburn's not as good shooting the ball. Those teams have kind of been, I feel like they've been the leaders over the past couple of years. Mississippi State, though, to where we talked last year, they were kind of a sneaky good 3-point shooting team. They're not this year either. So I think it's just kind of the way the game has gone. It's just changed to where that is not as much of a thing. My whole point there is to say, at any point we know Jaden Shackelford, Quinterly can just go off, Keon Ellis, Davison. I don't have that same sense for Vanderbilt without Rodney Chapman. And I think that for me would be the difference here. If Chapman was playing, I would probably pick Vanderbilt because I think he would be another guy that can help you in that area. With Pippen and Chapman, you're feeling pretty good about matching up with Shackelford and Quinterly. But without him, I don't know. Like I don't get that same sense of
Okay,
confidence.
I want to give you some series history. We talked about how like Arkansas and Missouri is one of those matchups that just transcends the numbers. Like Arkansas is a better team, but
Yeah.
beating Missouri by 20 and 40 or whatever it was, more than you would have expected. Okay, last year when Alabama was rolling anybody and everybody in Tuscaloosa, Vandy went in and lost by 4.
Yeah.
That was a better Alabama team, a worse Vandy team. The year before, they played in Tuscaloosa, and Vanderbilt upset Alabama.
That's right. That's what I was trying to think of. Yeah.
So and that was by 8 points. And the year before, which would have been under Avery Johnson, so maybe it's irrelevant. They beat Vanderbilt on the road in Nashville. So that would have been, that would have been Stackhouse's first year, I guess. No. That would have been Bryce Drew's last year.
Yeah.
So they did win in Nashville, but it was the year Vanderbilt didn't beat anybody. And before that, again, these are probably irrelevant, but lost to Vandy Memorial. So, again, that's just – and that wasn't a good Vanderbilt team. Alabama just had fits in that gym.
To me, this is decided by Javon Quinterly and J.D. Davis. And I think how they play in this game, if they play well, and you're assuming that Jaden Shackelford's going to at least play, where he's not going to be held scoreless or anything, I just think that's going to be too much for Vanderbilt to maybe keep up with, if that makes sense.
Athletically, Alabama's guards are much better. And that's where Chapman would really help them because he can neutralize that. I mean, when Vandy's going to Trey Thomas and guys like them, Drew Weichert's getting minutes. He's a walk-on.
Yeah.
Who started his career at a D3 school.
Hit a big three.
I mean, you got a good point. I mean, if Pippen gets in foul trouble, then God help them.
I think that's where this is a game to me is based on the matchup, and I think the matchup is when you can go 4 deep like Alabama can, guards with Shackelford, Quinterly, Ellis, and Davison.
Yeah.
I just think that's
we don't talk about
valuable.
Ellis enough. He's had a really good year.
Right, and he goes last game? What was it? He goes for what do you have against Kentucky? Hang on, I had the stat earlier.
28.
Bring it up.
I believe
28.
from memory.
He didn't score the game before, so it's like
yeah.
that's a pretty wide range. But I feel like in a game like this, that is where. Listen, I wouldn't be shocked at all if this is close, but I'm going to lean towards Alabama because I think that their guard play is probably going to be the deciding factor here because I think without Chapman, Vanderbilt, it's going to be hard to match that. You've got
their other Pippen. Guards outside of Pippen just aren't that athletic.
That's an issue, and I'm gonna take Alabama here.
I think you talked me into it. Okay, if folks want to take your advice on any of these games, tell them about our partnership with Action 24/7.
Yeah, don't do it on Arkansas and Florida. Action 24/7 description below. Click on that link. Use the code South14, and you can bet on any of these games if you like. Description. Click South14. First deposit up to $800. They'll match it.
I'm Chris Lee. He's Blake Lovell. We will have more picks coming for Wednesday's games on Tuesday. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. That helps us out a bunch.